All right, this is going to be a different kind of review than I'm used to doing. Mostly because this isn't a review. I didn't actually have a chance to use this knife because unfortunately I have to send it back. Now, I like this knife. I like the design of it. I was very excited for the design of it. In fact, I had my email notifications turned on for this knife because it was delayed for a while and I wanted to know when it came out so I could get it, use it, and review it. But unfortunately, this particular item has a problem that I can't look past, and I wanted to kind of share it with everybody. Maybe this is something that you've seen. We'll get to that in the second half of the video. I am going to talk a little bit about the knife itself. I'll go ahead and throw some specs up. If you want to listen along with me, this blade length is 4 inches. Overall, it's going to be 9 1/4, so that's the blade when it's open. Weight, 5.2 ounces. Thickness, 3.5 millimeters. And the handle is 5 1/4. That's how large it's going to be when it's closed. The steel on this knife is SK5, and that's actually a carbon steel. And one of the selling points of this knife, being a hard use kind of ranch hand or stable knife, is the fact that it's a carbon steel. It's going to be easy to sharpen out in the field, and especially for farriers or for people who work on ranches, being able to resharpen your knife while you're using it and not having to go home, that's a plus. So I was excited about this. I've been doing some work at a friend of mine's horse barn lately, and I thought this would kind of fit the aesthetic. And I collect vintage Schrades anyway, and this is based on an old school Schrade. So I was really excited about this knife. Now, when you open it up, first thing I notice is it has a banger leather sheath. This sheath is fantastic. It is a nice tool leather. It's very thick. It's very dense. It's got nice reinforcements over here on the belt loop. The belt loop's a little stiff, but of course that would loosen up with use. It's got a great snap. You can hear that again. You can see the amount of force it takes. You can see how white my nail gets when I have to press on that to open it. Great sheath, simple sheath, cold steel logo on the front. Nothing to complain about here. I don't know if they sell these separately, but I may buy a couple of these sheaths. Getting into the knife, however, this thing is beautiful. It's not very expensive. I picked one up for about $40. And again, it's reminiscent of an old school Schrade knife. It even has the same shield on the front. That Schrade knife is different in a couple of ways. It had a little bit of a different grind. It had some beveling over here. And it had a brass or bronze liner lock instead of this one, which has a steel liner lock. And this one is mostly open construction. These are fasteners, Torx head fasteners, instead of pins, so you can actually adjust the pivot and you can take these scales off. Being a carbon steel knife, that is fantastic because you're going to want to clean this more if you get it in a wet environment. If you spill Gatorade or something on it, you really probably going to want to take it apart and clean it because you don't want it to be rusting down there in that pivot. It's also a knife you're going to want to keep oiled. You can spray it with some null oil, or not null oil, you can spray it with some gun oil or something else to try to keep that pivot nice and oiled up and keep a moisture-free environment. Even WD-40 would work in there if your main worry is just to repel water. It's got a full flat grind. You can see it says Ranch Boss up here. Something that is different from this and the Schrades of the time is that the Schrades or the Uncle Henrys or the old timers, they had a shield on only one side and it was embossed with the brand logo, where this guy has shield on both sides. Now, on one hand, I think they missed an opportunity to do some branding, put Cold Steel or Ranch Boss on there. I think it would have looked really cool if they kept this blank and then just said Ranch Boss 2 on the side. I think that would have been really fantastic. But they didn't, and that also opens it up for more versatility if you want to get this engraved. If you intend on getting this for your dad or your uncle or even a cool lady in your life, and you want to engrave maybe your anniversary on there, it gives you more opportunities. So that is kind of nice. You know, you're getting more there. It, of course, is a liner lock. It's got a pretty intense backspring as well. So there is a bit of force. This is not a knife that you're going to be able to really open up one-handed, not unless you push it against something else. Like that. You know, that would work. But generally, this is going to be a knife you're opening with two hands. It's going to be in a belt sheath anyway, so it's not going to be a quick access knife like a folder with a thumb stud anyway. So this is a knife meant for work. This is absolutely the last thing you'd want to use in any kind of rescue or tactical situation. So those are kind of the overall features of the knife. The thing that I dislike about it, and the thing that really is a problem for me, happens to be the liner lock. And from first glance, actually looks like a decently thick liner lock. These liners are easily the thickness of the liners on a Ontario Rat 1. And it's in a good place. It's right about noon as far as engagement goes. And well, yeah, it looks great off the bat. It was really sticky when I got it at first, though. I chalked that up to a combination of it being both carbon steel, which is a little gummier than stainless steel, and the fact that it was new. But when I decided to look at the lock bar, I noticed something very strange. I've never seen a knife before. There's this little divot right in there. And my first thought was, oh crap, my detent ball fell out. Well, wait a second. This isn't coming into contact with anything over here. There was no detent ball. Also, it's square. That's strange. And then I looked at the lockup again, and I immediately got an idea for what this could be. It looks like possibly from the manufacturer, from the factory, this lock was way too early, meaning that it arrived over here way too, more than it should have. And in order to mitigate that, they got some kind of like carbon steel or carbide punch, stamped it, and that corrected the lock over a little bit. But that is a bad way to do a correction on this type of lock. Now, I've managed to fix liner locks by using a ball peen hammer further down, and that scooches the liner up a little higher, and so it locks up a little later. But with the way that they did that here, compromises the integrity and the life of the lock. I'll go ahead and show you what I mean by that. So a lot of times you'll see on YouTube videos, they talk about early and late lockup. And what that's essentially referring to is if the lock gets pushed too far over, that's considered late. Or sorry, that's considered early. And that means it doesn't have a lot of time left as far as its wear before it's starting to get into the danger zone over here, where it could potentially get stuck between the stock of the knife with the pivot and the liner. If a lock is late, that means it's not engaging all the way, or it's engaging just at the beginning of the tang. That would look something like this. So you see that a lot in YouTube videos, people explaining that, but what people may not explain as much has to do with lock engagement from the other hexes. So if I have the knife like this, and I'm going to draw this liner. Here's the knife with the pivot. Here's the spot that they've milled out for the liner. And here is the liner itself. You want these areas here to be 1-to-1. You want these two lines to be the same. On this knife, unfortunately, the area for the liner to come into contact with is incredibly small. There's very little surface area there for the liner to contact. Additionally, because they've peened this over, they've stamped that in there to kind of push the liner material up a little bit. What that did, again, if you look at it from the side, is it pushed this kind of little lip out so that when it sits on the liner, it's not sitting like this, or trying to make these parallel. It's not sitting with a full engagement. It's sitting like this, where it's sitting on this corner, and that's part of why it was so sticky when I first got it, is it's only contacting a tiny little piece of steel. And this is going to wear very quickly, moving the lock further over. That's not a great way to handle this. I'm very kind of concerned that this is going to be something I see on more of these, because I would love, after I return this, to buy this knife again, because I want to use it. I would love to take this knife and, you know, I've been helping a friend of mine on her ranch lately. I'd love to use it at work. Maybe even get one of these for my dad, because he loves traditional style knives. But I can't justify using it with such a poor kind of lock situation. Please, if you have one that doesn't have that problem, let me know in the comments, because I'd love to go out and get another one If you do have this problem or you have noticed it, tell me, does it look the same as mine? Is the stamp in the same place? Like I said, I've been collecting knives for over a decade and I've never seen anything like this before. So any feedback that you can give me would be excellent. I'd love to hear from you. And, like I said, I want to use this knife. I was excited to get it. And unfortunately, I'm sad that I'm going to have to send it back to the seller. And I explained the problem to the seller, and he said it was no problem. And so, he's going to be aware of it. Maybe he'll take this one out of rotation. But yeah, that's all I've got for you right now. If I do end up using this knife after I buy it again, I'll do a full review. But for now, these are just kind of my thoughts on the knife itself. So thank you so much for coming along, and we'll see you soon for another review.